Hi, my name is Jenny Lauren Dowden for Conduit News, and today we have Jennifer Lancaster joining us from Saline County. She is president of the Saline County Republican Women, here to talk about a resolution that they recently worked on there with the Saline County Quorum Court regarding sexually explicit books in the county library. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Jenny. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, we always love having you join Conduit. Just recently, this week, the Saline County Quorum Court passed a resolution, I believe 11-2, to ask the Saline County Library there to take the initiative and start removing some of these sexually explicit materials from the children's section, basically to get in line with Senate Bill 81, that's now Act 327. Is that right? Tell us a little bit about it.
It is now Act 372, but yes, you're right. It was Act 81 or SB 81. It was sponsored by Dan Sullivan on the Senate side. And so this act makes it a crime for sexually explicit material to be available even through our libraries, if it's made available to children. And so some of our ladies were in the library and they found some questionable material, but that led to this very explicit sexual material that it details statutory rape and anal sex and just some very deviant acts. And so that is when those ladies took it to the quorum court members, and they presented it to them and said, did you know that this material is in our library? Well, those quorum court members, many of them, not all, but many, the majority, I think the 11 that you saw vote for it, they actually took the initiative to go down to the library and they read this for themselves, and they saw that this material was available to minors. And now the American Library Association labels young adults as actually teens, 12 to 18 years old. And so I think that has caused some confusion when people say, well, that's in the adult section. Well, it may be labeled young adults, but that is a section targeted to teens. And so this material is being challenged by some of our ladies. The quorum court took the initiative upon discovering this to write a resolution that just prompts the library to go ahead and take action to make sure that they comply with Act 372, which goes into effect, I believe it's June 1st. It's 90 days after the governor signed it, which was not too long ago.
Talk to us about that quorum court meeting. I saw pictures and video. The room was so packed. What was the temperature like there? How did that evening go?
Yeah, it was packed. We actually had a line winding outside and around the courthouse. They actually had to shut down the courthouse and not let anybody else in. Our Saline County Republican headquarters was packed with those who could not get in. And so there were quite a few people. Unfortunately, some of the emotion was stirred up by some, I will say, irresponsible and actually reckless journalism. And I use that word loosely. I think it was more like gossip sites that we have here in Saline County that started some rumors that we were attempting to defund the library and ban books. And that simply was not what was up for discussion last night. The discussion was just about the resolution, which hopefully you can post for your viewers later. And it just says that it is encouraging the library to take action to remove this sexually explicit material away from the children's area and relocate it to an area that's inaccessible to children. So we had many people. There were 53 people, I believe, who signed up. The county judge, Judge Matt Brumley, was very patient. He heard about 80 minutes of arguments from both sides. He had both sides equal time. Unfortunately, not everyone got to speak last night, but the ones who did a great job. And ultimately, the quorum court voted 11-2. And I think it's worth noting that the two JPs that championed this were Jim Whitley and Clint Chisholm, and they did an excellent job talking about how they care about our children, and they realize that as adults in a society based on laws and that we want to protect our children, and this was just one step that we could take to make sure that that is done.
It's always interesting to me whenever I see a post on social media or an article stating that those who just simply don't want this material available to our kids or book banners, that is an argument now that just regardless of how often it's dispelled or proven to be false, the opposition loves that term, that you're banning books. And it's simply not the case. And we had Jay Green from the Heritage Foundation on a while back to talk about an article that he wrote for the Heritage Foundation, calling out the ALA and PEN and others for calling parents book banners. And the point that he just said over and over again, he was like, if you're calling this person a book banner for simply not having a piece of literature available at that particular location, he said, then we're all book banners, because at school libraries, is everyone going to have the Art of the Deal there in their library? Maybe not, probably not. So are they in essence banning books? It's just a false narrative. And so, like, what do you say to that whenever people call you and others, your organization, book banners? Like, what do you say in response to that?
Well, I think it's important to remember that our rules and our laws are a reflection of our values as a society. And our libraries are funded by the taxpayers, we the taxpayers. And so if we see a problem with material that is available to children, then I say it's our responsibility, not just as parents, but as members of a decent society, to speak up and say something. You know, because we care about our children and because we're a society of rules and laws, we have implemented all kinds of laws against what kind of material is available to children. For example, we have ratings on movies. You know, kids can't go to movies without their parents, certain movies without their parents. They can't listen to certain music without parental approval. So, you know, we have laws. We have the Child Protection Act. So as a society, we value the innocence of children, and it's our responsibility to protect them and defend them when necessary. And that is exactly what we were doing. You know, another argument that I heard last night was that we, being those of us who don't want this material available to our children, need to, quote, parent. Well, it is we, the parents, because of our parental involvement, that we discovered these books. And so now we're stepping up to protect our children from the possibility of being exposed to that vile filth. And our local libraries should be a safe space.
Yeah. One thing that I thought was really interesting about last night, there was someone who stood up to read from some of these books, and as he started getting into it, the county judge was like, hold on, no, you don't need to go any further, because it was inappropriate for the audience. What does that tell you?
That's right. I mean, if it can't be read out loud and with a group of concerned adults, then there is no reason why it should be available to our children. But you know, I want to praise the county judge for looking into that. He knew what was about to be read. He knew what was coming, and so that's why he asked that it not be read out loud. And so while I have, you know, I think it should have been allowed to have been read. You know, I praise the county judge because he took the initiative to go to the library himself and see that these books were in fact available to children.
Next steps, do you anticipate, or has anyone been in contact with the Saline County Library to see if they will take the initiative to remove these books?
So Act 372 outlines a process by which you may challenge these books. Now, last week, the library shut down. Their claim was that they were having internet issues, so they just shut everything down for an entire week.
Wow.
But yeah, there will be some challenges to these books, and our people and are prepared to follow the appropriate procedures outlined in Act 372 to have these books designated appropriately.
And then what would you recommend to other county committees or parents, and they find materials like this in their library? What would you suggest they do?
Review Act 372, and the procedure is outlined. So what you can do is there's a form. Most libraries have this procedure in place. There's a form that you can fill out detailing the material that you find concerning. It will go to the board. If the board disagrees with you, then it can go to the county judge, and from there to the quorum court. So there's an entire procedure, and parents, it is our responsibility to make sure that our world is safe, as safe as we can make it. And we just need to be proactive and realize that this is a spiritual war that we're in, and we cannot be weary. We have to suit up with the full armor of God and be ready to just go into battle for our children's sake.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for all that you do.
Thank you, Jenny.